Welcome each one of you, and a special mention to Ruhani ma'am for taking out time and doing this session for us. So, as you would understand, it's an extremely relevant session. We have just finished with the Class 10 series where we discussed various subjects and we had different subject experts who spoke about how to better your scores in your board exams. On a special request from students of grade 12, we have now started the Class 12 series, and this is the first episode where we are talking about an extremely important subject, which is economics. And as you would understand, students, and you must have already studied, whether you're a science student or a commerce or a humanities, this is one subject that each one of you is looking at for getting a great score. And of course, for a great career opportunity ahead as well.
On your sleep, on everything. So it's a function of all. Now, focusing on the first point, smart and effective study. Neha ma'am, we can have the next slide.
Ma'am, in between, may I please request you to come slightly closer to the machine so we can hear you better?
Definitely, ma'am.
Slightly, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
There seems to be some
So,
glitch with the technology. We lose you for a few seconds in between. So in case there are some more devices that are plugged in around you, maybe you could just try switching off the Wi-Fi on the other device.
ma'am, I'll just try to change. I'll try to change my Wi-Fi. Give me a second. Yeah.
Sure. Because your voice is continuously breaking, ma'am, over here. We can't hear you very well.
Okay. I'll just do that and
Sure.
give me that.
Thank you.
Uh, ma'am, I hope. Is there a change now?
Yes,
Better?
we can hear you better, though your video has paused now. But we can hear you better now. Yeah,
With videos available now, it's fine
better,
now.
better, ma'am, better. Please go ahead.
Okay. You want me to repeat if you wish to? Should I repeat anything?
No, ma'am, we gathered that. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Yeah.
So, now focusing on the very first aspect of how to prepare, or strategies or tips for scoring 100 or a fair score in this subject. I've seen students, they do not have a phobia for economics. There is, like, I've seen students struggling with maths, or maybe science students phobia for chemistry. But students, you love economics, you have a passion for this subject. Still, somewhere down the line, what I see, able to match up to the benchmark or the expectations that you have from yourself for the subject of economics. So today let's focus very smart and effective when you're learning and when you're studying. When I say the word smart, I mean that you have to be very, very, whatever time you are giving to the subject every day, give yourself a realistic goal and a target within a stipulated time. Do not simply give hours and hours and hours without any planning, or sit with the book for hours and hours, just consoling your egos and yourself that okay, I'm giving so much time. Not needed. Whatever limited time you give, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours, to economics in a day minimum, you should have an objective, a goal in front of you. You have to be very, very productive in whatever time you're giving. When I use the word effective also, by the end of 1.5 or 2 hours, when you sit for economics, after when you get up, you have to tell yourself that yes, this was the target and this much I have achieved. So you have to be effective. Your learning has to be effective. You cannot simply do away with the limited time that you have. Now, also, students, there is no point surrounding yourself with 10 books, 10 and class notes and your tuition notes and your friends notes and your own notes. No point doing that. Follow one book at a time. Do not keep jumping around from one book to the other book to the other book. Don't do that. Your entire economics curriculum has two parts. One is macroeconomics and the second is Indian economic development. When I talk about macroeconomics, whatever book your school has prescribed for you, like whatever publishing house, need not be NCERT, because the NCERT for macroeconomics is too elaborated. There are topics which are not there in the curriculum, so you might get trapped with a lot of extra syllabus when you do NCERT. Yes, you can keep a check that you have not missed upon anything that which is there in the curriculum and which is not there in the private publisher's book. However, that is not the case for whatever books I've gone through till now. Like I go for Sandeep Garg with my students. You can go for any kind of book which your school has prescribed to you, but stick to that one book when you're doing macroeconomics. Do not jump from one book to the other. When I talk about the other second half of the curriculum, that is Indian economic development, which is you only have to stick to NCERT. You need not be doing any other book for Indian eco. No means no, absolutely not needed. NCERT, every word, every line, every paragraph, absolutely necessary and sufficient as well. So do not go for any other book when it comes to doing Indian economic development. Also, students, macroeconomics has a lot of diagrams in it. You have to do those diagrams, but when it comes to using those diagrams in the question paper, only use them whenever they are asked in a question, or if it's absolutely compulsory that you cannot explain a concept without the diagram. If you feel the diagram is not needed, then don't draw. There are two reasons why I'm saying this. One is it takes away your time. There is no weightage because there are certain theoretical concepts where the diagrams are not required. So even if you're drawing an extra diagram, you are giving away your time. Secondly, if by some chance you make a mistake in the labeling of the x-axis or y-axis or any peculiarity of the diagram that you missed on, there are chances that you give an impression to your examiner that somewhere you're not very clear with the concepts. So I'm again repeating, use those diagrams in the paper only when they are asked and they are necessary. Also, I have seen students asking me that, ma'am, we are very comfortable with macro, but Indian eco we are not able to do. Or students from humanities or good with theory, they are able to handle Indian economy very well, but they get stuck with macroeconomics. So, they ask me that, ma'am, we are not able to do national income. It has a lot of numericals, or we are not able to do theory. It's very lengthy. How do we learn? The answer is no. You cannot leave any portion of your curriculum. You cannot, afford to take one part of your curriculum lightly and give more importance to the other. And there is no space for any kind of cribbing now. There is no space for saying that we are not able to do, we cannot do. Trust me, everybody out there who's in class 12th by now, you have the potential. That entire schooling that you've gone through, you have the potential to do the best in the curriculum that has been framed for you. So don't try to tell yourself that ye nahi ho raha, ye we are not able to do. No, you have to give equal importance to both the parts and to all the chapters. Now, of course, yes, you have to be in proportion with the weightage, but you cannot leave any portion. So, moving on, when we move on to the next, ma'am, can we have the next slide, please? Yes. So, here is a glimpse of the distribution of marks, the entire 80 marks, how they are being distributed amongst your two subparts, that is macro and Indian economic. macroeconomics, and Indian economic development. Now, within macroeconomics, if you carefully observe, Unit 1 and Unit 3, they carry the maximum weightage. Unit 1, National Income Accounting, has 10 marks. Unit 3, Income Determination, has 12 marks. So out of 40, these two chapters carry 22 marks, which means that they should be given more time than other chapters. One, they are lengthy, they carry numericals, they have more number of concepts, and the marks allotted to them are more than the other topics. So you should begin, when you begin with doing your preparation, first, you should be very, very thorough with Unit 1 and Unit 3 of macroeconomics. Now, when I say, you should be done with this, the rest of the chapters, money and banking, if you see government budget, BOP foreign X, they all carry, 6 marks each, which means, again, the message is very, very clear that when it comes to attempting a 6-marker question, there is more probability and more content in Unit 1 and Unit 3 from macro. There are more chances that you get a 6-marker from these two units. You can prepare 3 and 4-marker questions from the other units more thoroughly, and focus on 6 markers from Unit 1 and Unit 3 more. Because if you see the pattern for last year, if you go through your SQPs, there are chances that the 6-marker content usually is asked from Unit 1 and Unit 3. Moving to Indian Indian economic development, except for the last chapter that carries 6 marks, you have all other chapters with equal weightage. Why do I say that? Now, the first unit that you see carries 3 chapters which are for 12 marks. Then the rest 6 chapters are coming for 22 marks. So on an average, every chapter has a weightage of about 3 to 4 marks, and the last chapter has a weightage of 6 marks. And also, the last chapter has lot of tables and lot of data. And if you see the pattern for the question paper of last year or SQP, you would find that most of the data analysis or interpretations are coming from last chapter. So being the last, you cannot ignore it. It carries a good 6 marks, much more than any other chapter here, because this is in totality. If you see Unit 2, it carries 6 chapters and has 22 marks. So if you spread across 22 marks over 6 chapters, I would say that all the chapters in Indian economic development have an equal weightage kind of thing. So you cannot give more preference to one and leave the other. You equally have to be indulged with all the chapters here. We can have the next slide now. Right. So if you see, I begin with strategies of Indian economic development. When I say Indian economic development, I see students, getting, there is nervousness, there is anxiety because there is theory. Since last year, this 40 marks have been shuffled, and 12th class students are doing Indian Eco in 12th, and while 11th, we are doing microeconomics. This change has just come in the last year. So this academic session is the second time that you will get Indian Eco in class 12th board papers. Last year's paper was not very difficult, but the message was very clear that do not go beyond NCERT. In fact, if you analyze last year's question paper, you have 3 questions directly coming from back exercises of NCERT. So you cannot ignore that. It is your Gita, Bible, Quran, your main course book that you have to follow. Students, at least in this entire year, you have to read NCERT twice, thoroughly. And when you're reading the textbook, let's say you're doing it for the first time or second time now in these 4 months, when you're reading, when you're learning, when you're doing a chapter, keep a pen or a pencil in hand and and use those sticky notes or keep a register or sheets with you, and keep underlining the main pointers and give subheadings to your paragraphs. Just the way you can see on the screen also, that you can, the following para might talk about reasons, benefits, drawbacks, relationships, effects, causes, causes of poverty, or effects of poverty, or relationship between human capital and economic growth. Or when you're reading infrastructure, there is a paragraph which talks about development of infrastructure and economic growth. So there is a relationship that is being explained. But there are no headings mentioned in NCERT. That is why you find the book vague. It's not vague. It's just that you have to put in that extra effort and give the headings to every paragraph. Headings, by headings I would mean that you can, causes of poverty, effects of poverty, benefits of poverty elevation programs, drawbacks of poverty elevation programs, relationship between human capital formation and economic growth, like that. So every paragraph can be given a heading. Once you are clear that what the paragraph talks about, you can then make the pointers and write them down there and then. Chalk out pointers from every paragraph, write them down, and along with the heading. Once you are done with this, the next step in Indian Eco to prepare is frame your own questions. Now, how do you frame questions? The way I put it on the screen, you can see them. Where, why, what, when, how are the basics. You can go a step ahead by using your terminologies like analyze, elaborate, highlight, explain. Now, see, you can have multiple questions from one paragraph. Answer will remain the same, only the body language of the question can change. The same thing happens when you sit in the exam hall and when you get the question paper in front of you. When you look at the question paper, you might find the language of the questions changed, but the answers are same. You know the answers. The only thing is it has to click you that okay, this is the same question which I framed in a different language. So once you master the skill or the art of giving underlining the headlines and giving the subheadings to the paragraphs and framing your own questions from the paragraphs, nobody can stop you from mastering Indian Eco. That is the trick. So that book that you see in front of you, which has no subheadings, which has no pointers, you can turn around that NCERT by giving your own subheadings, underlining the points, framing your own questions there and then, and writing them down. Writing the pointers down simultaneously. Right? Again, when you do NCERT, you cannot afford to leave the boxes, the pictures, the description below the pictures, and the tables, the sources. They are also important. Every box is important. Now, since this year there's a new addition in your question paper that is case studies. So what you can do is that treat those boxes as case studies and frame your own questions from that. You never know, you can get a case study from that box only, which is mentioned in your textbook. What can be more better than that, right? So all the boxes are extremely important. When you come across a table that is given in the book, try analyzing that table. Like when you see a time series graph, when you see a pie diagram, when you see two pie diagrams, let's say distribution of workforce in rural areas and urban areas. You can observe, the participation of women, or maybe the amount of casual labor that is there in urban areas or rural areas. And if you get the same pie diagram in the exam, you have to analyze and interpret that. So you need to be very, very thorough with the interpretations of the diagram. They are very much there in the book. You just have to match them. That if I see less number of casual workers in urban areas, what are the reasons for that? If I see more women working, in the rural areas, what is the reason for that? Right? So So you need to be thorough with the reasoning part, the analysis part. Don't memorize. When you come across data, you need not learn the data at all. You will be given the data in the papers. CBSE never says that you have to memorize every data, but you should be in a position to analyze that data. Yes, there are certain basics. When I say, let's say, the number of percentage of people working in agriculture sector in India or primary sector in India. So these are certain basic facts and figures that you've been learning since your junior classes also, which is expected from an economic student that you would be knowing that. But memorizing each and every figure or learning each and every data that is given, that's not required. You should be knowing the analysis part of that data. Moving further, now we can have the next slide. Right. So, students, just like I mentioned in the beginning also, there is limited time left in front of you. In that limited time, we need to complete the syllabus. We need to revise the syllabus. You have to, practice the sample papers. So you need to divide yourself. You need to organize yourself very, very carefully here. How can you do that? You have, good 4 months with you now. In this 4 months, first organize yourself book wise. So how do we begin? We begin with macroeconomics first. Yes, you should start with macroeconomics first and get over with unit 1 and unit 3 first. Why? The reason is you will be in a position of, better, you will be more confident that your 50% curriculum is done within macro. It has a kind of a psychological impact for the next chapters. You feel more confident within yourself, right? And less of baggage mentally on you if you're done with national income accounting and if you're done with income determination. Students, when we start with national income accounting, I'll focus on this specifically. This chapter is not only about numericals. I see students, practicing those 6 marker numericals on calculating NNP at FC from value added method, expenditure method, income method, and you are spending hours and days doing 100 questions, 200 questions, and you feel that this whole unit is about numericals. That is not the case. You first have to be very, very clear with your theory part. Once you are clear with the concepts and theory, numericals become easy because numericals is all about what you have to include while estimation, what you do not have to include. And that inclusion and not inclusion will be, more clear to you when you're done with the theory and concepts in this chapter. Also, if you see last year's question paper, compartment paper, sample question paper, this year's sample question paper, you would find a different trend that I have observed from the last 2-3 years, that gone are those days when you used to get those lengthy numericals on national income. Now the trend slightly has changed. You're getting small numericals, 3 markers, 4 markers on calculation of depreciation, GDP deflator, or when it is about calculating sales or GVA like you got last year. So small numericals with more of concepts being applied over there. And you not getting those big numericals from those calculations, applying 3 methods and getting the same answer, spending a 15 minutes on that one numerical. That is not being seen since last 2 years or 3 years. However, it is not, I cannot say that it will not be there in this session also, but we cannot stick to only those big numericals. What I'm trying to put across you is that do not leave the smaller concepts also. What happens is, once you are thorough with the numericals, you feel very happy and you keep on practicing those numericals and you don't learn the theory part, or you do not make yourself clear with the concept, don't do that. You that 10 marks, if you see this time, you've got 2 3 markers and 4 1 marker, so you've not got any 6 marker from this unit this time in the sample question paper, which means that divide your time accordingly. Give time to both concepts, theory, numericals, formulas, 1 markers, everything, not only numericals. Second, when I say unit 3, income determination, why I always, I really like this unit a lot. It's lengthy, but it's very predictable. There are few 6 to 7 subtopics that I would just discuss here with you. And if you are thorough with those 6 or 7 questions, it is but obvious that you get 1 or 2 in the exams every time. Because this entire unit is all about those 6 7 questions that I just will be talking now. Beginning with saving curve, derivation of consumption curve from saving curve, and vice versa. Then, talking about ADAS approach along with the diagram, saving investment approach along with the diagram, disequilibrium points for both the approaches, why AD greater than AS, what happens when AS is greater than AD, what happens when saving is greater than investment, and vice versa. Then, what is inflationary gap? Implications. What is deflationary gap? Implications. Then, excess demand, deficient demand, measures to rectify excess demand and deficient demand, and working of investment multiplier. So, working of investment multiplier you can get in the form of a theory question, that is, you would be given a hypothetical numerical to solve and explain the working, or you can be asked a numerical straight away. The entire 12 marks is spread across these concepts. That's it. So you have to be, you might get 1 markers related to MPC, MPS, but when it comes to 4 markers, 6 markers from this chapter, these are the few topics that you first need to be very thorough with. And then the rest of the chapter surrounds these topics. Again, I repeat, derivation of savings curve from consumption curve and consumption curve from savings curve, inflationary deflationary gap, excess demand, deficient demand, ADAS approach to equilibrium, saving investment approach to equilibrium, diagrams extremely important here in this chapter, and lastly, working off investment multiplier. So if you are done with, write them down. Write these few 6 7 questions again and again. Prepare them for a 4 and a 6 marker, and you will be thorough with this chapter. 90% of the chapter is done if you are thorough with these 6 7 questions. Write them again and again. Draw the diagram again and again. Do not get confused with the x and the y axis, right? You should be very well clear that that 45-degree line that you draw in the ADAS diagram will not be labeled as AS or Y. It should be kept blank. It's an imaginary line. So do not. So that's again a very, very important point, right? Then that's how so first you allocate your time by doing these 2 units, then follows the rest of the macro, and then you move on to NCERT for Indian economic development. I just explained how you will be doing Indian eco. Keep the last month for only revision and sample question papers, practicing sample question papers. Now students, when I say sample question papers, you need not revert to those sample booklets, sample paper booklets that you get in the market and buying those 3 4 books with 10 sample papers each. You can, there is another way how you practice a sample question paper. You have your friends in along with you in the tuition and in your neighborhood. You might have cousins who might be of your age. Look up to them, exchange question papers from different schools. You have, every school has 2 pre-boards, right? So even if you are able to arrange 4 to 5 have friends from different schools, let's say you're able to arrange 10 question papers from 5 schools, both the pre-boards each, you are in a very comfortable position. Those 10 question papers from different 10 schools created by different 10 teachers of these schools, or 5 school teachers, you will have ample amount of variety, and the standard also will be very high. So, it's not necessary that you only have to look up to books like which are available in the market for sample question papers. You can arrange it from your friends, from your peers, from your neighborhoods, anywhere. Ask your teachers, ask your school teachers, your tuition teachers, they will provide you. Once you start practicing the sample question papers, get them checked. You click the pictures, send it to your school teacher, your tuition teachers, drop it at the school reception, ask your teacher to collect it and check. They will do it, but get a feedback on time. Practicing, simply blindly practicing, will not land you anywhere. Getting a feedback and rectifying your mistakes and doing better in the next paper, that is important. So you cannot sit back and relax that I've practiced 10 sample papers. You have, once you practice the first paper, get it checked by a teacher. Once you do, then check on the mistakes, practice the other next one, and some like this, at least get 3 or 4 papers checked by your teachers. Only then you will get a genuine feedback on your performance, and you will see your marks going up in every sample paper. Students, be very, very honest with yourself when you're practicing sample papers. You can also what you can do is that you can keep 2 or 3 color pens with you, like blue, black and red. Once you can do all the 1 markers from all the sample papers that you have, or all the extra papers that you've arranged from other schools. So do all the 1 markers. When you're doing the 1 markers, the ones you are very confident and you know the correct answer, tick it with a blue pen. Then there are questions where you're slightly confused, or you need to revert back to your book to find the exact answer. Tick those questions as with the black color, and encircle the questions which are absolutely blank about, you're confused, you do not know the answer at all, with a red pen. Then you know from where to begin. So you can go from the ones which you are not knowing at will which you do not have any idea about. First get thorough with those questions. You can do this first with 1 markers, then do all the 3 markers, 4 and 6, like that. Okay, so that's how you would be allocating your 4 months. First 3 months preparation, last month for sample question papers and revision only. So by April, you should be in a position to start practicing your sample question papers. Okay, we can have the next slide, ma'am. Now, students, the mantra for scoring 100, or getting a score above 95, 97 in economics, or maybe I would say for every subject, lies here in this slide. Written practice. Write, write, and just write. You cannot do away without writing. You have to write. You have to make your hands work simultaneously. You have, when you're learning, when you're reading from a textbook, your hands should work simultaneously. You should write down pointers and make pointers again and again. You should make flowcharts. You should make mind maps, but write the points. That is very important. Why I stress here on writing is, first, when you write, you are increasing your speed. Second, you will have a fair idea that a particular question, when you're attempting, how much time you are giving to that question. When you're drawing the diagram, you're explaining the concept, you're underlining the keywords, how much time it takes, how much space it utilizes. Here, there is again a tip for you all, that you can buy those landscape sheets from the market which are available. The rule sheets, just like you get in the board exam, and And do not try on the portrait registers. Buy those landscape sheets and practice on those. When you practice, when you pick up, every chapter as per its length and its weightage, you can pick up 8 to 15 questions, 8, 10, 15 questions. The most repeated ones in the last year, or the most important ones from the chapter, and write the answers with your own hand, make pointers, and then see that how much space is utilized for the 4 marker. Is it too long, or is it too short, or is it appropriate? Like I would say, for the 4 marker, not more than one sheet is required. For a 3 marker, 75% of your sheet, if it's filled, it's perfectly fine. And for a 6 marker, 1.5 pages, fine. Maximum you can stretch to 2 sheets, not more than that. Be precise, but include all the points when you're writing. This has an extra benefit. When you write something with your own hand, students, there is a visual picture that gets imprinted on your mind. When that happens, you need not apply your brains in those 3 hours. When you see a question, your hand, mind, body, your hand and mind will automatically work. So, mind and hand and eye coordination is achieved when you are practicing beforehand. More you practice, the better you are coordinated. And the less time you spend in those 3 hours thinking that what will I write. You cannot think, you cannot afford to think in the 3 hours, okay, where should I start from? What point should I include? Okay, what do I have to draw here? Which diagram to know? That you cannot afford in a class 12 paper. Papers are not very, very small. They take good amount of 3 hours. You cannot say that jaldi paper, you have a lot of time. It takes time to write good answers. When you're writing beforehand, when you're writing again and again and again, your speed increases. You know where to start and where to end, what to underline, what not to underline, whether the diagram will be there, will it not be there, and how your answer will look like, because you already have an imprint, you have done that before, right? So nothing in the question paper is unknown if you're practicing again and again and again. So this is the mantra here, that write, write, and write. I've seen as the batches are crossing, the habit of writing down and learning while writing is, slightly reducing in your generation. Don't do that. When we as teachers also have to perform somewhere, or we have to speak, we do write once. When you write, things get more, they are very much imprinted in your mind that way. So that's the mantra here. Ma'am, we can have the next slide. Okay. So students, again, to be very, very smart and effective, as I said, the focus areas and the focus spots are very much interconnected to each other. So you should be well versed at how your question paper will be. For that, you should know that your question paper will carry 34 questions, 17 questions in macro and 17 in Indian economic development. Out of those total 34 questions, 20 will be 1 markers. And those 1 markers majorly will be your MCQ based questions, a few 1 or 2 definitions, fill-ups, and you can have true or false, but maximum would be MCQ type questions, that is multiple choice questions. Then you have 4 6 markers in total, 2 in macro and 2 in Indian Eco. Then you have 2 3 markers and 3 4 markers in macro simultaneously in Indian Eco. So that's how your question paper pattern will be. So this, you have to keep this in mind. Why I'm saying this, students, that if you have a fair idea of what your question paper will contain, you will not be nervous. There will be less of anxiety, less of lack of confidence, less of fear factor. Why we are all scared of that darkness? We are all scared of darkness. We are fear. There is a fear of unknown. So we should reduce and minimize that fear of unknown by understanding the pattern of our question paper. That will happen when you practice the sample papers more. Ma'am, we can have the next slide. So, knowing your question paper, how do you get to know your question paper? By knowing the question paper, I mean that you can have a fair idea about your how your question paper will look like. What are the expected questions in a question paper? You know, how many one markers, what will be the placement of the case study. The case study will come within the one markers only. You will have 4 MCQs or 4 one markers based on that case study. So you get all this idea when you come across last year's question papers. So for the time being, you can go through 4 question papers. Last year board question paper, last year's sample question paper, this year's compartment paper that happened just now in July, August 2020, and this year's sample paper that has been released for this session. These 4 question papers, if you go through them thoroughly, if you practice them, you will get to know a list of expected questions. You will get to know the most repeated questions that are coming, and you will be more confident when you attempt your main paper on the D-Day. So as of now, you can ask your tuition teachers or your class or your subject teachers, or you can browse the internet. They are very much available. Last year's question paper 2019-20, then you have sample question paper for 1920, compartment paper, and sample question paper for 2021. All these 4 papers are available on the net. You can easily avail them and first start with these 4 papers. Then move on to the next. Make a list of expected questions, write them again and again, practice them again and again. I'm sure there will be less of nervousness, less of anxieties, and less of underconfidence in you all. You will be a more evolved and a better student when you go for the main paper on the day of your board exam. Moving ahead, we can have the next slide, ma'am. Now, students, following are the changes that have come this year that have been introduced in your sample question paper. The very first is I can see current affair based questions this time. You have questions on Atmanirbhar Bharat. You can have questions on new education policy. You have questions in the sample question paper related to COVID-19, monetary policy released by RBI recently. So current affair based questions are not very difficult to crack. You just need to relate that current affair, what the statement says, with the concept that you've studied, and it's very easy after that. Then you have case studies. First, case studies, students, don't be very, very scared of. They are nothing very new. And neither I would say that these case studies are like English comprehension passages. They are not. If you go through the case studies that are mentioned in your sample question paper this time, because it will be for the first time that you will get a case study. Even if you don't read the case study, you are able to answer those questions. If you have knowledge about the chapter from which that case study has come, like from money and banking or from income determination, the questions are very conceptual. And the concept need not be picked up from the case study. You might already know the concept. If you will be thorough, you all will be doing your curriculum again and again. You will be doing revisions. So case studies, will not be a difficult thing for you if you're well versed with your curriculum. Read it thoroughly. You will be able to answer the question. They won't come something from very out of the box or something you've never heard of. No, they will be related to any of your chapters or any of your recent events that have taken place, and they will be correlated with your curriculum only. So if you are thorough with the curriculum, it's not difficult to crack a case study. So don't be don't get conscious about it, or don't be very scared of it. Just read the boxes that are there. You can go through a few your teachers, by now every paper, every school, your midterms, your pre-boards, you are getting a practice of case studies, and that's how it will be in the main paper also. There is another addition this year in a one marker questions, that is assertion and reasoning questions. Usually these kind of questions are asked in the competitive exams when you go out, after your class 12. But these are included this time in the sample question paper also. Assertion means a fact. So a statement carrying a fact is given, and then follows a reasoning. You are asked whether the reasoning is correct explanation for the fact given above, or it's not. What is either the fact is wrong or the reasoning is wrong, or vice versa. So that's how you will be very, very, you can answer these questions when you read your books again and again. Usually, the statement that is there in the assertion comes from your textbook only. They can pick up any line from the textbook, they can pick up any definition, they can pick up any implication of a concept and maybe ask you that. So read that assertion and reasoning again and again, and you will be able to crack the correct option. The last is data analysis and interpretation. So this is what an economic student is expected to do: analyzing data. You're not asked to mug up or memorize or rectify the data. You're asked to analyze and interpret the data. By interpretation, I would mean, if you can see, or if students who've seen last year's question paper, there was a table given about India and China, and they were given gender gap, gender ratio, and infant mortality rate for both the countries. So India and China both struggle with a poor male-female ratio. Reasons are very, very similar. Both the societies, there is a son preference, and there is more preference given to female peticides, and both the countries has its own dynamics, but the son preference factor is very common. So you have to write these explanations and give these reasons for the table that you were seeing in the question paper. Do not simply start explaining the figures. You have to explain the reasons behind those figures. That kind of questions also are being asked now on in Indian economic development specifically. We move on to the next slide. Okay. Now, students, this year CBSE has made a few important announcements regarding your deletion and addition of topics. And these are the few deleted topics that you can see on the screen also. From the chapter Money and Banking, you will not get, questions based on these subtopics, instruments of monetary policy, basically CRR, SLR. But this same topic is there in Unit 3. Since it was getting repeated twice in the book, it was the same topic that was there in 2 units. So it has been deleted from Unit 1, while it still remains there in Unit 3. And it's an important topic. When I talk then next, only the definition of BOP deficit is no longer there in your curriculum. Rest, everything remains the same. Foreign exchange rate chapter, when you do the last portion of the chapter, that is determination of exchange rate through demand and supply mechanism, where you draw diagrams of demand of foreign exchange and supply of foreign exchange, and there are shifts, all that is deleted now. You can only restrict yourself till reasons for foreign exchange, that is reasons for demand and reasons for supply of foreign exchange. There is no need to do intersection or determination of demand supply. That is not there in the curriculum. Then from Indian Eco, in the chapter Human Capital, growth of education sector no longer is there. And from the chapter Rural Development, you do not have organic farming, as there is a subtopic of organic farming. It is no longer there in the curriculum. And from the chapter Infrastructure, the entire energy portion, where you talk about power sector, limitations of power sector, all that is no more there. Do not do them. Thinking ki kya pata, we get that in the paper. No. If CBSE has clearly mentioned that these topics are deleted, then you have to you consider them as deleted and do not waste your energies on these topics. Rest, everything is same, and like you have the prescribed curriculum, your textbook, everything, all other topics are there. Also, a few books like private publishers in macroeconomics. If I talk about Sandeep Garg, if I talk about P.R. Jain, these books, there are a lot of power boosters after the chapters. They are not a part of the curriculum. For example, the books in national income accounting, three sector model, four sector, no, they are not in the curriculum. Only two sector model is there in the curriculum. So do leave all the power boosters, do not do them. They are not a part of your curriculum. Do not do extra things. You are just wasting your time and energy on them. Moving on to the last portion of my this webinar here. Yes, those 3 hours or 3.5 hours, students, you have to be very efficient in terms of your presentation and how you utilize that landscape answer sheet that you get in the paper. First, give your best shot in those 3.5 hours, like you've never done before. No, you will never get a second chance, right? So give your best in terms of your presentation. How do we do that? First, that 15 minutes of reading time that you get, students, thoroughly read your question paper. When you read your question paper, read the case studies and crack the answers there and then. Do not use a pencil and pen, but just keep it in your mind. There are a lot of internal choice questions, like you get one choice in 1 marker, then in 4 marker, then in 6 marker, in 3 marker. So be very specific that which choice question you will attempt. Like for example, at times what happens is that one question might be tricky, but the other one is lengthy. The other one might be easy but lengthy, and one choice might be slightly tricky, but might have a numerical or something like that. So just be very balanced when you choose the choice questions. Think in those 15 minutes that which all choices you will be attempting, and keep it balanced. Do not go for all the lengthy questions. You might not be able to complete the paper with utmost efficiency. You might not be left with the revision time. So choose very wisely the choice question. Then start with that section of the paper where you're most confident. This you have to decide in those 15 minutes of reading time only. When you are going through that reading time, you should be very clear in your mind that either you're starting with Indian Eco or macro, whether you're starting from 1 markers or 6 markers. So take that decision in those 15 minutes when you are reading the paper. Answer all the questions in points. Write in points only. No paragraphs. Whether it is macro, whether it is Indian Eco, whether it is a 1 marker, whether you're supposed to write only 2 points, but write in points. Do not write in paragraphs. Okay. Next, very important. Treat your examiner as a layman, the one who will be checking your answer sheet. Do not think that the person knows. For example, okay, why should I write this definition? It's not asked, and the examiner knows it. No, you think that the examiner is there to learn from your answer sheet. He will be checking 100 answer sheet. Whichever answer sheet explains him in the most efficient manner, he will give a 6 on 6 or a 4 on 4 to that child. The examiner doesn't know you. He will know you through your answer sheet. So treat your examiner as a layman and think that you are here to explain him this answer in the best possible way he or she can understand. It's extremely important there. Then, in the first 5-6 pages of your answer sheet, when you're attempting the paper, avoid any kind of cuttings or rewritings or canceling the question and then doing it again. Pick up questions where you're most confident. Avoid cuttings. It puts an impression on the examiner. It sets the mood of the examiner when he's giving you marks. If you get full marks in those first 4-5 answers, then the examiner has an impression about you. And maybe in the following questions, wherever he feels also to deduct half a mark, he might just ignore that. He or she might ignore that because you've already created an impression on your examiner by doing those 4 5 questions flawlessly in the beginning. All right. Then, students, there is, also you have ample amount of space. Your answer booklet has almost 40 45 pages that are given to you. Trust me, they're more than necessary. So let's say you've answered and you've attempted a question and there are 3 lines remaining. Do not start a new answer from there. You can, simply carry forward and go to the next page. Do not start with, last lines. Do not conjust your answer sheets. Leave space, leave 2 lines, 3 lines after every answer, and give headings, underline the keywords. Once you are done with the entire paper, pick up a pencil and underline the important words in every answer. It makes the paper eye catching, right? The examiner knows that where you're putting stress on. He knows that you know the important points of that answer. Also, while let's say what happens at times you're doing one portion and you jump on to the other, don't do that. Try following these tips in your pre-board papers. You will genuinely get good results. When you're doing macro, stick to macro. When you're doing Indian Eco, stick to Indian Eco. Do not jump. And wherever possible, you can use flowcharts or graphic organizers. Like for example, you're asked to explain the 3-dimensional approach to elevate poverty. So there are 3 approaches. You can simply put 3 arrows on, maybe make that small flowchart where you can explain those 3 approaches simultaneously. So that's how you can utilize the space that is given to you. Do not congest your papers. Leave space after every letter. Those who have a small handwriting, see, there is no time to improve your handwriting now. What you can do is you can improve your presentation now. So that can be done by utilizing the space, appropriately and efficiently. Ma'am, the next slide. I have a sample of the answer sheet of the student, who has scored 100. This is available on the internet also. If you can go through. It's just a sample that how you are supposed to attempt your answers. Just you can see, you should write the section on the top, the subheading, the subsection, everything mentioned very, very clearly. Answers in pointers. When you're writing the numericals also, leave line. Do not put everything in one line. So be very, very neat. The handwriting may not be very, very good, but the way you present your answer matters. Like, if you see the left hand side of the answer sheet, there was space remaining. So the child has started on the next, sheet. So that is how, when you have small little bit of space remaining, do not start a new answer from there. Start from a fresh page. That's all. I think we are my explanation, whatever I had, whatever best I could give you, I've done that. And together, just keep yourself calm, composed, and together we can achieve 100 or a 95 or a 99. You, along with your teachers, along with your with me, you can definitely score 100 in economics. That's all from my end, Neha ma'am. Now, any questions?
Yes, that was wonderful, ma'am. I've been glued to the screen. I'm sure you could make out at the speed at which I was changing the slides, that I was listening to you very attentively, and I went back to my school days. And students, I must tell you, and it gave me so much confidence to hear, ma'am. I was wondering if I would get a chance to redo my economics paper once again, though I was good at it. But on a serious
Thank
note,
you, ma'am.
students, please go ahead and ask your questions. Though I don't think ma'am has left anything unanswered, but if there are any questions that come to your mind, please go ahead and put them in the chat box and we will be happy to answer them. We'll give you about 2 minutes in case you want to say anything to us. Ma'am, meanwhile, I must compliment you. We did have a very small number on Zoom, but I think as many we started with are there with us till the end. So they were completely glued to the session. It was a very effective one. We have a question from
Thank
Jaspreet,
you.
who wants to know, ma'am. Okay, ma'am, for Indian economic development, how to answer for critically evaluative questions is what he's asking.
Okay, good question. And in fact, I would stress upon this. Students, when you get the word critical means giving both positives and negatives for an answer. Let's say you get a question, critically analyze the performance of poverty elevation programs. So you have, of course, more and more content on the drawback side, but you always begin with the positive side. You write the subheading positives of poverty elevation programs. We've been able to eradicate absolute poverty. We've been able to uplift people out of poverty, but there remains a few drawbacks of the poverty elevation programs. Here are as follows. So critical analysis questions always have to be answered from both sides. Being critical means giving the good and the bad for a particular concept that has been asked.
Great. Ma'am, another one, a student wants to know that she's in class 11th right now. He is in class 11th. And till when should the class 12 economic syllabus be over in terms of months, they want to know.
See, in terms of months, when you spread the curriculum across your school planner, then your school has lot of things. There are exams in between, there are activities and everything. So when we start from March, we usually complete the syllabus by November. When you go by the school, when you every day study for 40 minutes or 1 hour, and the number of working days also are limited. But let's say when you're doing it on your own or you're doing it through the coachings, you can complete the curriculum in 3 to 4 months also. Again, if you're only doing economics. But since you're doing all 5 subjects in the school system, and in between there are multiple events that take place, so we spread the curriculum across from March to November. That is the ideal time to complete the curriculum thoroughly, including giving exams and getting reinforcement and feedback on your performance.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. Palak is asking that do we necessarily have to write statements and full forms in numerical questions?
Statements in full forms in numerical questions. No, like for I think you're talking about national income accounting, like when it is about PFCE, GFCE. There are standardized short forms of all the components that you study in these chapters. You can go with the short forms. If you are more worried and let's say you're very conscious, that then once you can just mention in the beginning, and if the term is repeated in the numerical again and again, you can then simply use the short form. Like you have marginal propensity to consume, you can very well use MPC. No problems in that.
Sure. Greatly answered. Ma'am, Anusha wants to know that do we have to show the working for the numericals in the MCQs as well?
I would suggest yes, you can do that. If you know, you should, but it's not necessary. Like for MCQ questions, you can simply write the correct answer. You should completely write the answer with the correct option. If you know the working, you can show. It gives a good impression on the examiner, nothing more than that. Like if you don't write, marks won't be deducted. But if you write, it gives a added impression. That's it.
Oh, ma'am, there's a rather long question, so I'm reading it out word by word for you. Adira wants to know how to frame ideal answers to questions that require us to analyze charts and tables, as sometimes the data in the graphs do not really match what is written in the paragraphs in the Indian economic development. And how should we go about presenting them?
Okay, so Bache here, if you are updated with the latest NCERT this year that has got printed, I'm not talking about the 2019 edition, I'm talking about the 2020 edition. It has tables and charts from latest 2018-19 data. So the latest NCERT version is available on the NCERT website and in the markets. Usually, so check the edition. It has included the new education policy in chapter human capital also. So if you see the revised NCERT that has come this year, it has come by mid-session only. It was not there initially March, April. It has come by after that. So So all the tables are revised and are new. But I would just say that, the explanations also are given above. When you start with writing the answer for a table question, first write what is given to you. First mention that, okay, let's say the labor force participation or workforce participation in rural areas is this much percent as given in the table, and urban areas is this much percent. Then next step is to give the reason as to why there is a difference in the workforce participation in rural areas and in urban areas. So first start with what is given to you. बेसिक एक चीज है, जब आप क्लास 6th and 7th में मैथ्स शुरू करते हो, यू राइट गिवन, टू प्रूव एंड अकॉर्डिंग टू क्वेश्चन. एक बहुत सिंपल चीज होती है. What is given to you, what is to prove, and what is according to question, you start. So use that kind of a to frame an answer. First write down what is given, then come on to the points what according to the question why such data figures are there. Give the reasoning then, and then conclusion by the end.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll just take the last two questions because we've shot over the time. The one question has come, ma'am. Do the true and false questions also need to have reasons put along with them?
See, till last year, yes, there was absolutely necessary that we were not. I've been working as an assistant head examiner also since 3 years now with CBSE. So we do not give marks if the student has not given a correct explanation on true and false till last year. But like this year, there is a slight change that you're only asked to state true and false, and you're not asked to give reason. I've seen that also. But I always tell my students to give a reasoning, especially when you're proving a statement false. You should tell what is the true statement. So the ideal thing is to give a reason, correct reason, because bluntly just saying true or false would fetch you half a mark there, not complete 1 mark.
Ma'am, we'll take the last question where students are saying that they are in 11th, but they're already facing problems with time management when it comes to economics. So 12th, they feel even more overwhelmed. Any tips for time management when it comes to economics, ma'am?
Well, see, you have 24 hours, and I know you have 5 subjects. If you are in class 11, I always tell my students that whatever I've done in 40 minutes, go back home and give 15 minutes and revise those 40 minutes. In the span of 40 minutes, a teacher is able to cover 2 subtopics, 1 complete topic, 2 to 3 pages of your textbook. It takes 15 minutes of the students to go back home and read those 2-3 pages of the textbook that were discussed in the class that day. So if you begin from the very first day of your class 11 by giving 15 minutes every day, the baggage over here is very less. However, if you are amongst those students who keep things lingering on for later on, and now when exam time is approaching, you are burdened with a lot of curriculum, then I would say that I know you students practice maths and accounts every day. But if you're giving maths 2 hours and accounts 1 hour, then at least give 40 minutes to economics every day right now, and then you can increase it slowly and slowly. Again, be very, very goal specific and objective.
That was a great answer again, ma'am. For students who are writing continuously that we are facing trouble completing a 3-hour exam, I would rather take this question up. The only solution is practice, and ma'am has only to has said that before also. Right in the beginning, she said, "Write, use your hands." The more you pick, your sample papers, the more you practice, more whatever you have available behind your books or like the sources that ma'am has mentioned is always going to be your savior. Okay, and Anusha, don't worry about admissions into colleges for economics. We are here to help you. You get through a great score first, focus on your CBSE, and do not worry, we will guide you. We're always there. So now, all of us who are attending, let's give a big thank you to ma'am for selflessly coming and doing this. It's almost been 70 minutes that ma'am has been speaking extremely non-stop, if I may say. So she hasn't even caught her breath. So, ma'am, we have thank yous coming in and a very nice feedback of the session on the chat if you'd like to read. We will be circulating this to all CBSE schools all across in the circuit and on the YouTube channels as well. So, students, in case you feel you have missed, some points or you logged out by chance, you could go back to the YouTube Career Launcher YouTube channel and access this information. Please share it with your friends, with your teachers, because it's extremely important. And we as Career Launcher, and especially as Career Launch Education Foundation, would want this to reach as many people who need it. So thank you so much, Ruhani ma'am. Thank you to Sudha ma'am. I must mention here for truly recommending a great resource
Absolutely.
person for us. So wish you all good luck, students. May you rise and shine and do extremely well in your economics exam. Please keep
Absolutely.
in touch with us.
All the best.
We will be conducting more sessions. We have biology tomorrow, and after that, English is coming up. So we will be continuously doing some more sessions for class 12. You can stay connected, use the same link to log in and attend the further sessions. Thank you so much, Rahani ma'am. We
Thank
wish
you,
you all.
ma'am. Thank you for this wonderful time. Thank you, and all the best to all the students.
Thank you so much. There's an ending remark that I must read out to you. Thank you so much, ma'am. This session has really brought down my stress levels. Thank you so much for that wonderful feedback. And this is to
Thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everybody. Good luck, students, and we'll see you again. Thank you.